Hi, this is Janine Sews, and I'm Janine. I talk about sewing a wardrobe for a woman over 50. Not too long ago, I told you about my plans to sew a capsule/travel wardrobe, and today I have some makes to show you. Before I get to that, I am wearing a top that I've had for years. I made this in 2016. This is Vogue 9204, which is a tunic pattern with the neck tie attached instead of a collar. This fabric is a very lovely secret pajama knit that I picked up either at MM1 Sock or Elliot Berman years and years ago. If you like this top, one thing to know, I made the neck ties 8 inches longer, so it's easier for it to wrap around my neck twice and hide certain things that I prefer to have hidden on my neck. Previously, I told you about my plans to sew a travel/capsule wardrobe for a trip that we have coming up later in the spring. And I have some pretty specific plans, but the 3 rules that I am trying to stick with are sewing things that are in my color scheme, which is a cool, clear summer. So saturated colors that are cool tones. Things where I don't have a bunch of orphans, so not running off and buying a print that doesn't match anything, and sewing basics. So garment shaped, solid colored garments that will stand the test of time. Now, when I first started talking about this travel wardrobe earlier this year, I showed you 3 pieces of fabric that I had, and I had very specific plans for those. And I've actually sewn 3 garments. So I'm going to show you these 3 garments that I have made that are all part of this current plan. The first garment that I've made is the top, using Simplicity 9229, which is a princess seamed tee that I've used before. I used this pattern last year with a pretty blue double knit. This yellow fabric that I'm using is also a double knit. And when I showed you the fabric last time, someone noticed the stripe in the fabric and said, "Are you sure that's going to work with the princess seam?" Well, as it turns out, the stripe is vertical, so there were no issues with princess seam with it looking like it wasn't aligned. Now with this pattern, I made 3 total changes. First, I brought the shoulder up a little bit and shortened the arm side because in the previous version, I'm going to pop that up here. In the previous version, I thought that the shoulder came down too far and the arm side was too deep. So I just moved that a little bit. Second, I made it a V-neck. And all I did for that is I just found a pattern piece with a V-neck and hacked it off and changed the binding for a V. Then the third thing I did after the top was almost finished. When I made the blue version, I lengthened the top 3 inches. Looking at myself wearing the blue version, it just seems too long and it seems like it fits on my shoulders and then it's kind of tight at the hips, so it's like a column and it doesn't give me any shape. So I've decided to shorten this one by 2.5 inches. So it's actually now 1/2 inch longer than the pattern as drafted. I've been watching a lot of styling videos and looking at how I look and how people look when they're properly styled. And I'm not getting any shape around my waist with some of these makes. So I'm trying to find ways to give myself a little bit more of an hourglass. Not that I'm gonna have anything close to an hourglass figure, but just a little bit more of a shape so it doesn't look like I'm straight from shoulders to hips. That's why I decided to shorten it. Now this is the finished top. And I'm going to pop up a video of me wearing it so you can see and tell me what you think about it being shorter versus the longer one. But here it is. Just got a nice V. This is a super simple top to make. I put a tag in the back this time to show off. And I sewed the whole thing on my sewing machine. Didn't use the serger, didn't use the cover stitch. And I just used a stretch stitch, and on the hems I used a triple stitch. So that's garment number 1. The second garment I'm going to talk about is my pants. And I showed you the fabric I was going to use. It's this nice gray bottom weight from Fabricland. It's got a little bit of stretch. And the pattern that I used is Vogue 9181, which I've used before for top down center out. Last fall, I made a pair of navy corduroy pants with this pattern. I was very happy making pants, thrilled. And I've worn the navy pants a lot. However, the more I wear them, the more I realize that I want to finesse the fit some. I'm going to pop up a picture of me wearing them, a video of me wearing them, and tell you what I want to change about them. The first thing is, I put the waistband so flippin' high on them that it's ridiculous. A, it's way too high. B, they slide down all the time. So I need to bring down the waistline. Second, I did a terrible job of the waistband. And third, the pants don't really have any shape. On the pattern line drawings, they appear to kind of be flared, but they're not. They're just wide. So I wanted to give them a little bit more shape. So how I went about sewing these using top down center out for the second time on the same pattern, I started out with the same toile, half toile that I used before, and that is made out of muslin. And I moved the waistband down a little bit, a good inch at least, and made a few other minor changes. Then I cut the fashion fabric. And what I decided to do this time, since my fashion fabric has stretch and my half toile does not, I cut the fashion fabric a bit bigger, had a higher seam allowance at the top, and then I left the sides because I knew they were fine. I had plenty of space there. So I was going to be doing kind of a mini top down center out on the actual pants themselves. And again, I figured this was necessary because my toile has no stretch, my fabric does. I sewed most of the pants. I did the fly, the crotch seam, the inseams, the darts. Then I basted the outseam of the pants and I sewed the waistband and basted the waistband on. And then I took a look at how they fit. And the waistband was still a little bit too high, so I was able to drop it down a bit because I hadn't actually stitched things. Then I took a close look at the legs. And the legs were just too wide above the knees. So I basted off some fabric, went down to about the knee. I moved things around a couple of times. And then I decided that I wanted to take off about, it was probably at least 1.5 inches on each outer seam down through the knee. And then I thought that the legs were shaped better and I wasn't changing the fit through the crotch or through the bum. I wasn't adding any new wrinkles when I did that. So then I finished them off. And I'm going to pop up a video now of me wearing them. And I hope you can see that they fit a little bit better. If nothing else, the waistband is lower and the waistband is sewn a lot better than the previous one. These seem to fit so much better than the navy ones. And again, there wasn't a lot of additional time required to sew them using top down, center out. There was no frustration with crotches or any of those things. It was basically just raising and lowering at the waistband. And it's interesting, when you start trying that, you move the fabric up 1/2 inch into the waistband and you might see all kinds of new wrinkles go. And you start thinking about the shape of your body. You can understand, gee, if I pull this up a little bit, then it's going to be pulling fabric from somewhere else or giving fabric back. Anyway, so these pants seem like they're okay and I won't be embarrassed to wear them in public, and I finished them nicely, so if I'm doing them in a public laundry somewhere, they won't look too homemade. But I am reminded again that using top down, center out, I don't have to go shopping for pants. The biggest challenge is finding appropriate fabric. But I'm just going to keep looking. I think I got lucky with these because it's also a color that I love. Now that I've used top down, center out several times, I'm feeling a lot more confident in what I can do. And I think I'm ready to start looking at some really nice bottom weight fabrics. And maybe after I make the knit pair of pants that I've got on my list, maybe trying some pants that have a yoke or pockets. But if you haven't yet tried this method, I would absolutely say give it a try. Piece number 3. Now, the third piece of fabric that I showed you last time, I haven't sewn that yet, but I'm going to. I sewed up something different. It's part of the plan. It's a long-sleeved knit top, something a little bit cozy. So I went looking for fabric. I had my list of patterns. I knew exactly what I wanted. And then I saw something that kind of went off the rails. Now the color is right, and it's a knit fabric, and it'll be perfect for a late spring top. But it does have a print. And it's a cat print. I just thought this was so cute. This is a cotton spandex sweatshirt print that I bought at L'Oiseau Fabrics here in Calgary. I know it has a print on it, but in fairness, the color is right and it's the right weight. And the color is denim. And one of the trends for spring 2023 is the denim on denim look. I'm gonna be wearing jeans. I'll probably have some other things around in denim. So why not have a fun top that's in a denim color that has a little bit of print? My initial plan was to make a standard t-shirt with this, but the fabric's a little bit too thick. So I did a lot of thinking, looked at every single pattern that I own, couldn't find anything that was perfect because I did not want an oversized sweatshirt. And then I was wearing a top the other day and I realized this would be perfect for this fabric. And that's Kwik Sew 3915. Now, I didn't make the version with the lapped collar as I have done in the past because I think the sweatshirt fabric would be just a little bit too thick and unruly for that lapped collar. But I wasn't quite sure of what I wanted to do. So I cut out the fabric and I just had a slightly rounded neckline and thought about it. Went looking at more patterns, looked at a lot of pictures, and what I finally decided to do was to sew a rounded neckline with a notch in it. I think I may have done this once before, but I've certainly seen it around, and it was just a little more interesting. I had considered doing your standard bound neckline, you know, with the ribbing, and I did have ribbing around and I tested it, but I just didn't think I was going to be able to get it to lie flat. So I decided not to add something to the neck. I drafted my own neckline and I drafted facing, which I've never done before. And I just have to say, I know a lot of you are a lot more experienced than I am, but I was really pleased with myself that I could actually do this. I took my time, I looked up some different things, I measured carefully, I marked using the right rulers, French curves, things like that, and then I just did it. So I'm going to pop a picture up of me wearing the top and I'll show you. Here it is. And here's the neck with just the little notch in it and the facing. And the facing was 2 inches wide. I top stitched around the edge. I didn't understitch it. And then I hand basted it, and then I sewed on the machine to hold down the facing on the inside. There's only one other thing that I changed on this. The neckline was kind of a big thing, but the other thing that I changed is on this pattern, I moved the shoulder up about 1 inch so that it hits my shoulder better. But then I neglected to correct the sleeve. I still had the XL sleeve. So my sleeve was too big, and I had recently pulled out a dress that I made a long time ago that had a dart at the sleeve head. So I decided to add a dart at the top of the sleeve head here. Because I didn't want to gather this fabric, it would have been too full. So I just added this little dart to take up the extra fabric at the top of the sleeve head. And that seems to have worked all right. I believe the purpose of the excess fabric in the sleeve head is to allow for mobility, but since this is knit, there's a fair bit of mobility there anyways. If you know about sleeve head darts, I would love to hear about it, because I think this kind of adds some nice shape, and I'd like to use that little feature again in the future. So this top, I'm really very pleased with it. I love the color, I love the fabric. It's going to be super comfortable. It'll get worn so much at home and on trips. The only thing about it that I don't love is it can't go in the dryer. And it's sweatshirt fabric, so if you take it when you're traveling, it's going to take a long time to dry. But otherwise, this was a good kick in the sojo type of project. So I've checked off 3 items on my little list. I have 7 pieces of fabric, about 6 patterns waiting, ready to go. There's nothing there that's too complicated. As I mentioned, this blue top has really encouraged me to keep going, and I'm also continuing to try to sew 30 minutes a day, which does make a big difference. You can get a lot done, even if it's just cutting or doing some alterations to a pattern and doing a couple of seams. It really helps to push through projects if you've got a lot to do. If you're watching this chronologically, my next video is going to be my Sew Frugal 23 reveal. And I've actually got 2 things to show you. I might have 3 by the time the end of March comes along. I know that quite a few of you are also participating, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what you've done. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you're well. I'll see you soon.